Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast as part of the Strap and Investigate. This audio podcast as part of the Convoy. This audio podcast as part of the Shitstorm Squadron, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Robotics production. Through this audio podcast, now looking at some bases in around leadership and management in around this audio podcast that looks at a desperate need for good leaders. So being a leader in amongst the sciences, albeit in pathology, in laboratory medicine, in amongst biomedical sciences or clinical sciences, for example, requires healthcare scientists to demonstrate integrity, but equally, scientists should be encouraged to have more constructive dialogue with a multidisciplinary or MDT, a multidisciplinary team colleagues or MDT colleagues, and so those who, for example, as an example again, in aligned to red cell blood transfusion requests or RBTs. For example, they that frontline healthcare practitioners or clinical where clinical practitioners in context of frontline know when it is safe to sort of request red blood cells for transfusion for healthcare service users or patients, but also additionally to know when it is safe to transfuse patients who may have for example, have low hemoglobin or anemia, or at risk for other particular sort of symptomologies. So leadership is also knowing when patients or healthcare service users may advantage at the same time with alternative treatments or alternative treatments or alternative modalities, and there is a need to need for sort of good practice or best practice examples. So colleagues, so healthcare practitioners and colleagues can sort of attain first-hand experience of what works and what doesn't. Then also additionally needs to be sort of more compassion through mentoring and training, more mentoring and training. Otherwise, unfortunately, the motivation and relating then lacks enthusiasm, and at the same time, management aspects pertaining to management alone does not allow or do not allow sort of a pathway in practice in amongst laboratory practices among practices laboratory practices or pathology practices, for example, for for healthcare science practitioners or healthcare scientists, sort of practitioners and laboratory specialists, for example, to advance or to and or to follow. And so there is a desperate requirement or need for good leaders to link, for example, or interlink the standard operating procedures or standard operating procedures, and to encourage evidence-based learning or evidence-based practices. And perhaps another example of where leadership is also required is highlighting, for example, in context of particular 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 sort of health conditions, for example, wherein healthcare scientists can inform or should inform in around the sciences, sort of layman sciences, or sort of baseline sciences, or underlying aspects behind some of the blood investigations pertaining to those particular health conditions. So, for example, again, as I've mentioned in sort of some of the earlier parts of this audio podcast series, looking at aspects pertaining to chronic kidney disease, but also in around particular hematological conditions, hematological condition, and particular sort of biochemical conditions, so thus to bring some of that basis to the general public, so thus to interlink sort of the awareness, but also some of the evidence-based practices that tend to be forgotten, if not forgotten, then generally where there is a sort of a neglect. So that draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast as part of the Strap and Investigate. This audio podcast as part of the Convoy. This audio podcast as part of a Shitstorm Squadron, and this audio podcast as part of a Storm Logistics production.